Welcome everyone. My name is Chelsea Corkins and I'm a Missouri 4-H specialist. And today we're going to be learning about rubber band cars. So in this lesson, we're going to learn about things like kinetic and potential energy and some other physics concepts that you might have learned in school before or will learn soon. And then the best part of what we're going to learn today, or at least my favorite part, is we're going to learn about the engineering design. So that's the idea that we're going to design something, we're going to build it, and then we're going to test it. And then we're going to start at the beginning. We're going to design again, rebuild, and retest. You get to be real life engineers during this. A couple of things before we get started though. This video is for educational purposes only. We do strongly suggest adult supervision. You do have to cut some materials during this activity. So make sure you're talking to an adult and getting their help on what items you're using and that they're helping you with any sharp objects. Second, don't worry about if the video references a packet. Everything that you'll need for this lesson, you can find around your house. Again, ask a parent of what you can use. Third, don't forget to reference that lesson plan that you'll find online as well. It's got some great reflection questions, some things that you can engage with throughout this lesson, as well as that data sheet. Engineers like using their data sheets. We like to write down how our tests do because then we can determine how to design best and optimize or make our car the very best car we can by using that data. All right, so get all of your materials. We'll list them here shortly and then we'll get started. All right, so these are the materials we're gonna need to get together in order to do our rubber band car today. Well, it's called the rubber band car, so we're definitely gonna start with some rubber bands. Find a variety of them around your house. We have some smaller ones, some thicker, bigger ones. We don't quite know what's gonna always work, so try some variety. Then you're also gonna grab your pack inside of your camp bag. This is going to have 2 dowel rods. It's gonna have 4 of these plastic caps, and then it's going to have a complete bottle. Mine's already cut out because I went ahead and already snuck ahead in our preparation. But you'll have these 3 items in there. You also might want to find some different variety sized caps around your house. For example, Nutella or peanut butter caps work pretty well. These are spice caps that I've got around the house. If you have plastic mason jar caps, lids, those work really well also. So grab some different ones. The only requirement is that you want 2 that are going to be the same size. So I made sure to grab 2 spice lids so that they're the same size. And then the last thing you'll need are your tools to work with. I find the easiest thing is to use a box cutter or a smaller sharp knife. Certainly make sure you're using adult supervision while using that tool. Once I puncture the bottle, I like to use different width screwdrivers to kind of widen the plastic hole. As well as you're going to need a glue gun. So I went ahead and I'm heating mine up so that we're ready to go when we start assembling our car. So go ahead and go get those items and we'll be right back.
3.
All right, welcome back. Hopefully you've gotten all your materials ready for our rubber band car. For those that are competitive, keep in mind that this is actually a Guinness World Record that you could compete in. The resources on your lesson learning plan in your packet. So take a look at where that might be an option for you if you're a competitive person like I am. So let's go ahead and get things together for our rubber band car. All right, so first things first, you're gonna take your bottle, and the best thing is to cut a top part out of it so that you can reach down inside. You can use other types of bottles as well. I've never tried a plastic water bottle, but that might work. I know in some examples I've seen they use mustard bottles or dressing bottles. You just want to make sure when you're cutting apart that you're not breaking the integrity of these 2 sections here that are really going to hold that strength of our car together. You also don't want to cut too much down across the body of the car because that'll make it flimsy in the middle as well, and that might cause it to bend in half. You can also use some popsicle sticks and glue them together. Lots of different options that you could use so that you could then put your tires, your wheels, your axles onto it. So I went ahead and cut that top part off using my box cutter. I did that before we got started here, so you didn't need to watch me do that. The next part is to go ahead and select your wheels. So I decided to use, like I said, some spice lids on the back part. I decided to do a little bit bigger of wheels on the back. So I started with one of the spice lids and the axis or the wooden dowel that we have. So we've got this wooden dowel and I said, okay, about how much do I need in order to get across the bottle? So I measured across there and then cut about where I thought that might be good. Then I went in and said, all right, well, we're gonna need to drill some holes to be able to put that dowel rod through. Couple of tips when you do this, if you can look at mine up here close, you'll see that the back axis isn't quite straight. That's my fault. We'll try again with another bottle. That's okay, we're all learning here. But you wanna make sure that's kept as level or as straight as possible, a little bit closer to what I've got here, so that we can take our dowel rod and it's straight like that. So go ahead and identify about where you'd want to put those on your bottle. Remember, you're going to need 2 axes. You're going to need one in the back and one in the front. These are closer together because in the front I decided to use my plastic bottle caps. And in that case, since they're smaller, if we look at the side of our car here, they're going to have to sit lower on our body in order to touch the ground. If I had my axes all the way up here, that's not going to be able to touch the ground. So I'm going to let you go ahead and do that. Use your box cutters, your screwdrivers maybe to widen that hole a little bit. And then we'll come right back and we'll talk more about how to insert those wheels, get them all attached, and attach the rubber band. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you were able to drill the holes in your plastic bottle for your 2 axes that will hold your 4 wheels. Like I said, hopefully kept them a little level. If not, that's okay. Give it a try. We've got a lot of plastic bottles around most of our houses, so you've got some other options. You can always try again if you need. That's a big part of engineering. We try again when we find something doesn't work as well. All right, so the next part is to go ahead and take our wheels and get them attached. You have a couple of options here depending on what type of lid you're using. For me, I just put a lot of glue, hot glue on mine. Put a little bit on the end and then kind of smushed it in there and filled in a little bit in the extra. I'll show you here in a second, kind of my technique for that. You can also drill through the plastic since it's just plastic. Some of the harder plastics though might need something a little sharper, either a pretty sharp knife or some type of metal skewer. So please use adult supervision during this part if you're gonna go that way. All right, so I went ahead and attached one. Then I am going to put it through our back axis. Okay. And this is where I then cut the end of the dowel off. So if you can see, our original dowel was about that much longer than what we've got here. So I attached the blunt end to the lid, pushed through the sharp end and said, okay, this is about where I'd want to cut it off based on my other wheel. So I took my other wheel and I decided to attach them to the outside because they got a weird knob on the inside. And so it's going to be about that distance apart. Okay. So I went ahead and then cut it off there using, again, the box cutters to kind of make a little bit of a nick in the wood and then break that off. One tip that's kind of important with these is you want the wheels to stay pretty close to the plastic. So this isn't too bad. This might be about the furthest I'd suggest going from your plastic bottle. That keeps them from wobbling too much. That keeps them really tight within the plastic. However, be careful you don't get too close, because if I were to put that axis in there, I'm going to be running my wheel up against the plastic, and so it's going to rub against my car itself. So kind of judge somewhere in there. I tend to make them a little bit longer and then cut it in shorter if I need to. Okay, so then we can attach our second wheel. So I'll kind of show you how I did that with a lot of the glue, hot glue. Again, use parent supervision in this part because this is always hot. Okay, so I put a good sized amount on there. I know exactly where that middle is on the cap. And I hold it there as it starts to dry. So it's going to cool down and then it's going to get hard. So it's okay that we go ahead and put this second wheel on because we're going to use what's called a hitch knot to attach our rubber band to the back axle. That's actually going to be what powers our car. We are going to turn the back wheel, and as we turn it, it's going to tighten that elastic band. Now here's the science part of what's going on. We are creating what's called potential energy. So just as if you were to lift something off of the ground, lift it off of the table and drop it, before you drop it, it has what's called potential energy. That's the energy that it will have if it begins to go into motion. Same thing with our elastic band. Once we tighten it and then we release it, that potential energy is going to become our kinetic energy and is going to move our car forward. All right, so that's pretty sturdy. So we've got our back wheel on there. You might want to let it dry a little bit more. I usually take a little bit more of my hot glue and put it around the edge to make sure it's very secure. I'll skip that part here. As you can tell, there's quite a bit on there compared to my one over here. But we'll go ahead and move on to our front wheels. Okay, so we've got our front wheels here. I did the same thing as I did with the back one. I decided to just use hot glue in there. So stuck it as close to the middle as possible. Keep in mind, if you're not getting in the middle, your wheels are probably gonna wobble a little bit. But again, we can take off the glue, we can try again, and that's okay. That's part of this, this project. So we're gonna take our dowel again and put it through the front. These wheels get a little tough because of how close they have to be. Let's see, there we go. And if you can't quite get the rod through, you can always use a screwdriver to widen that hole a little bit. You also want them, if you can, you probably can't see this one on the video, but this is very hard to turn. That means I need to widen these holes, because if the wheel's not gonna turn, the car's not gonna go. So I wanna make sure that I widen those holes before I completely get this ready to go. What I do to finalize that is take this last wheel and put it here. So again, we want to make sure we're far enough over with our axes so that that plastic wheel isn't hitting our plastic car itself. So I'd probably glue it about there. This was again after cutting it. So you just kind of take a measurement, kind of look where you'd want, how long you'd want that axis to be, and then you'd glue it on there. Okay, so that's what our car's looking like. One final thing, and arguably the most important part, is our rubber band. So like I said, try a couple different types. I started out with a bigger one, and that just didn't give me the elastic. It has a nice stretch to it, but it really didn't want to pull back on itself quite as much. This one was really nice, so I went with this one. All right, so we're gonna do a hitch knot, which essentially means we're gonna take one part of the rubber band, and we're going to, I put it underneath the axle, depending on which direction you want your car to go. Try which one, see which one works best. So I put it underneath, and then you've got your opening here on your rubber band. You're gonna reach through, grab the other side, and pull up, okay? So you can see that we've got our edge of our rubber band that's now tied around there. Okay, so before we go to glue on our second wheel, and hopefully I mentioned this early enough that other people haven't tried it yet, we want to not put our second wheel on yet in the front, because we need to tie the rubber band around that. So we'll take our axis back out there, attach the rubber band, and then put it back in here. Okay, so now we can see that I have the rubber band wound around this front axis. We just slipped it in through the rubber band hole itself. In the back, we use that hitch knot, which there are instructions in your written lesson plans if you need kind of some further steps, some kind of close-up images on it, some drawn out images to help you out with that. But really, it's just a way that we can tie a rubber band around something by just using its end. So you see that it's kind of stuck there around the back. Now, what I've found, and this isn't necessarily something that the Guinness World Record encourages, so you're gonna have to keep that in mind if you wanna start getting competitive, is that I put a little bit of hot glue right there. The reason for that is that I feel that it just doesn't pull the rubber band. I don't know that I have the right rubber band yet to be able to create that tension that we need to tighten the rubber band. So I put a little bit of hot glue on there just so it's gonna stay in its place, okay? So we let that dry, and then we can start seeing how well our car is doing. A couple of notes. So an elastic band, like I said, works through kinetic energy. That's what we're creating here. More specifically, elastic has these long chains that make up the rubber itself that are pretty loose, just kind of loosely wound around each other and pretty relaxed. So in their natural state, they just kind of look like this. When you start pulling them apart, you're stretching that chain out and making it long and straight, kind of like you would think of, maybe my hair is really curly. When you pull it out, it's one straight line. When you let it go, it's all crinkled back up together. That's what's happening with these polymer chains inside of this rubber. You're stretching them out and they're really long. And then what do they do when you let go? They're gonna go back to their natural state of being all scrunched up. So that's what is happening scientific-wise on this rubber and in this rubber band. So we're gonna use that to our advantage when we start launching our cars. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry just a little bit more. I'm gonna attach my second wheel up front. And then I'm going to ready my race area. That pretty much just means I'm going to take a piece of tape. I'm going to put it on my table. You can put it on the floor. Floored tile is a good option. That way we can see how far we go. So go ahead, work on your car. Go back in this video if you need kind of some of your answers, your questions answered, and we'll meet right back here and give our race cars a try. All right, welcome back. I have finished assembling my rubber band car. We've got all 4 wheels on. We've got the rubber band in the middle, and I've put a little piece of tape down on my table as my starting line. A couple things that you could adjust on your car. You'll notice I put some rubber bands on these back 2 wheels. That gives us more traction. That's going to allow the wheels to grip a little bit more. These 2 lids are smooth edge, so they're going to really struggle to be able to hold on to the table. So I put a couple of them around to help with that. You'll also notice on my car that because I had an issue with getting these 2 to be straight, as well as our turn this direction, these 2 wheels are a little high centered compared to these 2 down here. These are going to be things that you'll have to adjust throughout your trial with your rubber band car. Try to get in there with the screwdriver, pull it around a little bit. Remember, you've only used glue and holes on this car, so you can fix anything that might break off. Don't worry if it breaks off. Take a little patience with the glue gun. It takes a while for the glue to cool down and get hard, but once it does, it's worth it for sure. So I'm going to show you a little bit what you want to do. So you're going to wind your car wheels in the back to tighten your rubber band. So I'm going to turn them backwards a little bit. So you can see that's tightening that rubber band, pulling it back in my car. So when I release it, no, we'll see if it works this time. It spins around like that. So you'll notice mine had a lot of resistance in doing that. That's because these holes I made back here aren't quite big enough. So now you'll really see that we do need those to be pretty loose so that when you get the tension of the rubber band pulling those wheels forward, they're not stuck against that front area of the hole that you made in the back for your axis. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to adjust and make some readjustments throughout, and that's okay. So once you get your car to a point that it seems to turn pretty well, I'm going to tighten this. We'll set it down at our starting line. Pick a consistent point that you want it to start at, and all you're going to do is tighten those wheels and let go. Mine's unfortunately not that interesting right now for a couple of reasons. One, we do have that rub on the front part, so it's difficult for the back wheels to turn. And 2, because these wheels are high centered, we're not getting any pull from this back wheel. One thing you could do to adjust that is take some coins, something that weighs a little bit, and set it in the back. Now, again, Guinness World Records has a limit on how much you can do, how much you can put in the back of your car, but if you're interested in that, take a look. So I set that in the back of my car, and that's going to give my car a little bit of push so that these 3 wheels are going to touch the ground. This one up here is off of the ground. So if I really wanted to get the best effort that I could out of my car, I'd want to adjust it so that all 4 are going to be touching the table. So let's give it a try and see if my car might move forward this time. So I've tightened it up. Oh, no luck still. Let's see if we give it a little bit of push. That was mostly me pushing it, but there was a little bit of pull from the rubber band. So as you can see, I'm not an expert either, but that's okay. This was my first try at making a full rubber band car, and I learned a lot. I certainly learned that I need to have these axes a lot more level. I need to make sure that they are straight this way so that my wheels are also hitting the table at the same level. I definitely think I want to play around with this rubber band that I'm using in here. I think if I were to try my thicker one again, I might be able to get it to work this time. That would be really important in order to create the pull that I need to overcome that friction that I'm probably getting from these wheels back here, from this axis back here. And don't forget, if you need to start over with a different water bottle, that's okay. Try a different, plastic bottle. They've used ketchup bottles. They've used mustard bottles. They've used dressing. Anything that you're kind of running low on, give it a try. And try some different wheels. I gave you all 4 of these, so you should be able to put your car completely together. But like I said, spice lids work well, peanut butter jar lids. Just adjust for the height of that wheel and give it a try. All right, well, please look at your lesson plan examples in your booklet. Take a look at some of those reflection questions, things like, what did you enjoy about this? What did you learn about elastic and plastic and how that might be applied to the engineering design? Remember, we were engineers during this process, because if I go back and adjust my wheels, I'm saying this here maybe needs to be changed out for something else, and I'm seeing if that goes any better. Always measure your distance once you get some movement on your car, and then you can tell yourself which of your options might be better. So as an engineer, how could you then apply that in some of your other design? Take a look at those reflection questions. My contact information is at the bottom of the page, and let me know if you have any problems, any questions, and we can certainly work on that. I hope you enjoyed this project, and thanks again.